Compact, style-focused crossover SUVs are seriously popular these days. Something a bit fun, a bit attention-seeking, but still versatile. And the DS4 and Cupra Formentor are two of the best. These are two fairly new brands. The DS is effectively the sort of posh arm of Citroën, and it has actually been around for quite a few years now, although it's had a bit of a renaissance in the last few years with some really exciting new models, including the DS4. One of the sort of distinctive styling cues of DS is that it's got some really cool sort of diamond-shaped, kind of really glitzy styling cues, which are, by the way, inspired by the Louvre. And it doesn't get much sort of posher and fantastically French than that, does it? The Cupra is to Seat what DS is to Citroën, but it has to be said it's not just a more upmarket brand, it's also aiming for a bit of a sporty slant. Both the DS4 and Cupra Formentor are available with standard petrol engines, which start from under £30,000. But if you want the plug-in hybrid versions that we're testing here, then you're looking at around £38,000. Or if you want the top spec versions that we've got, you're looking at well over £40,000 and even up to £44,000. But that does get you official pure electric running of between 33 and 39 miles in both the DS and Cupra, not to mention well over 200 brake horsepower to play with. I think it's fair to say that there is a bit of an epidemic of quite generic looking cars out these days, particularly I reckon in the sort of compact SUV and family car class. But these two are notable for being quite striking looking, particularly I have to say the DS. I think the DS4 looks fabulous, and not just those sort of really chintzy bits, but I think it's more to do with really aggressive looking fascia, really nice sharp lines. I think it's a fabulous looking car. I would add this is the Performance Plus version. You can get this in a cross version, which has a bit more of a sort of SUV slant to it. But still, really great looking car. The Cupra too, I think Cupra have done an amazing job of raiding the Volkswagen Group parts bin and making a car that actually looks and feels quite different to any of the other Volkswagen brands. I think they've done a really good job of that. And I mean, there's no doubting this looks really smart. So both of them doing a really good job of standing out from rivals like, you know, even things like the Renault Captur and the Nissan Juke. As for practicality, the DS has the bigger official capacity of 390 litres, plus it has some underfloor storage for the cables. It is lacking any bag hooks though. Rear seat access is fine and there's plenty of legroom, but headroom is quite tight. A 6-footer will definitely feel quite hemmed in. The Cupra gets a 345 litre boot, with the difference over the DS mostly lost due to the lack of underfloor storage. The actual boot space itself is really on a par with that in the DS, and you also get bag hooks and quick release handles for the rear seats, so it's a bit of a tie on this one. As for the back seats in the Cupra, there's similar legroom to in the DS, but headroom is usefully better, so even you tall adults or lanky teens will be happy and comfortable for a long journey. Right, let's have a look at the cabins and the infotainment in these two. I'm going to start with the DS, and again, as with the way it looks on the outside, it's really the styling in this that makes it stand out. I do like, again, all the sort of prism styling that you get around here. I mean, these are some seriously funky vent controls going on there. That's very cool. I don't know so much about this insert on the steering wheel, which, I don't know, it looks more like it's come off a sort of slightly cheap bit of furniture or something. It's slightly peculiar, but they're trying really hard. The Alcantara finish, the material finish actually in the DS, really good. And the seats are comfy too. You do get manual lumbar adjustment, but I find it odd that you can't get electric seat adjustment on this. As I've said, this is the Performance Plus. It's a £40,000 car, this. Granted, that is £1,000 or so cheaper than the VZ2 Cupra that we've got over there, which does get electric seat adjustment. But it just seems a bit weird. I mean, you get head-up display, you've got full matrix LED headlights in this. You can add a night vision camera to this car, but you can't have electric seat adjustment. Just seems a bit odd to me, that. Infotainment in the DS4 is adequate, but not excellent. The touchscreen graphics are good, and you get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, as well as native sat-nav. But it is difficult to find certain settings. Things like turning the head-up display off can be really tricky to do. Plus, you do get a peculiar touch-sensitive pad that allows you to bring up some shortcut buttons, and yet it doesn't really seem to be much easier than just using the main touchscreen. The peculiarly hypnotic screen is quite good for doodling on when you're parked up and bored. The first thing that I'd like to point out in the Cupra is the traction control button, which is, I think, comically obvious. It's right in the middle of the centre console. I mean, it's easier to find than the hazard warning light button. The engine start button is actually on the steering wheel here, which is kind of a nice touch. By comparison to the DS, I have to say it is a little bit boring in here. It's a bit more sort of staid. But of course you do get the Cupra, the trademark sort of copper finish. I'm a little bit in two minds about it. I kind of like the fact that it's, again, adding a bit of colour and a bit of interest, but I just feel like I don't know that it integrates terribly well. It feels a little bit aftermarket to me. I also really like the blue leather in this. This is a VZ2 car that we've got here, the test car, which also gets electric seats and lumbar adjustment, which is great. The graphics quality on the Cupra's touchscreen is better than in the DS, and the screen responds quickly. It's similarly a bit awkward to find some of the more in-depth menu functions, screen dimming for instance, but otherwise it has all the features you want and also gets over-the-air software updates. We have not suffered the infamous screen freeze of this generation of Volkswagen Group infotainment, but as we've said before, the touch-sensitive controls for temperature and volume look slick, but are a pain to use in practice. It's a bit much of a muchness between these two so far then. I do think in terms of practicality, the additional rear headroom in the Cupra probably just about sort of takes it. But the interior in the DS looking really good, and it is pretty good to drive as well. So this is the 225, as we know it's a plug-in hybrid, so it's got plenty of power. It's got a 1.6 petrol engine. It's just a bit coarse and noisy. It's not bad in everyday kind of routine driving, which is what most people are going to be doing in it, so that's fine and it's nice and quiet. And in electric mode, actually it's really quiet and really refined. It also has some very fancy suspension. Now, DS and Citroën do tend to put comfort right up there as one of their priorities. That's one of their big selling points. But I think that this car slightly misses it. It is quite soft and cushy over certain surfaces, but it seems to struggle, despite having a system whereby it's actually sort of scanning the road in front and actually altering the damper settings as it's going along. So you'd think it would be really good, but it just seems to fidget a lot over surfaces like this, and it can sort of thump quite heavily. I find around town particularly. High-speed ride's pretty good. It's lower speed stuff that it struggles a little. So I'm a little disappointed with the ride comfort on the DS, but other than that, I mean, the steering's fine, weights up quite nicely, light enough for being really easy around town, feels really confident on the motorway. This is just a car that feels really relaxed and confident as a sort of tourer, really. It's just not a car that feels terribly at home if you want to drive it hard, despite having plenty of power, 0 to 62, 7.7 seconds. So it's not short on acceleration at all if you want it. It just feels much happier at, 3 or 4 tenths, mooching along. It's just a really comfortable, easygoing commuter, I would say, the DS. And if you're after something like that that looks absolutely brilliant and is pretty efficient, and more on that in a second, then this is definitely a good choice. As for efficiency, the DS will return around 25 to 30 miles of pure electric running in varied real-world driving, or likely less than that if it's cold and wintry. The 1.6 turbocharged petrol engine managed a fairly easy 42 mpg after the battery had run out of juice, so will likely do better than that if you're gentle. As for charging up the battery, well, maximum charge power is 7 kilowatts in the DS, and that means the battery will be fully charged in 2 hours from a standard home wall box, or more like 7 hours from a normal domestic socket. Before I go any further, I want to talk about MPG. Now, we've already mentioned efficiency on the DS. The official MPG figures for plug-in hybrids of any brand are always, I think, very misleading. So you end up with astronomical figures of, over 200 MPG. Take them with a pinch of salt. The best thing to do is to look at the real-world range that you get, pure electric, decide if you can do most of your journeys on that and how much you're going to save money-wise, or if you're in it for the environmental benefits, decide if you care about that enough, and then look at what you're going to get MPG-wise once you've run out of electric running. Or of course you can run these cars in hybrid modes where they flick between electric and petrol power themselves, and they can be very efficient in those modes too, but you're not really going to get the claimed MPG figures unless you're on electric running pretty much all the time. Pure electric running in the Cupra is very similar to that in the DS, so we'd expect to see something like 25 to 30 miles, or a bit less in the winter. We did see slightly better results from the 1.4 turbocharged petrol engine, which we managed to get 45 mpg out of. Again, you will likely do better if you're on a steady motorway run. Anyway, we are in the Cupra now, and just a bit more taut, a bit more kind of like engaging and interesting to drive than the DS. It has got a touch more power, so 241 brake horsepower, and it's got a 1.4 turbocharged petrol engine, which is a really nice little engine. I definitely prefer the petrol engine in this to the engine in the DS. I have to say the ride comfort on this, I know I criticised the ride in the DS as well because I have really high expectations for the DS, but it is noticeable that it's a bit sort of sharper the way it absorbs potholes and this kind of thing. I like the steering in the Cupra, I like the gearbox, everything about it works really nicely. You can also use the modes. If you go into the screen here and you can set it to save some of its battery charge, so you can set it to save up to about 50% of the battery charge for later in the journey, which is quite useful. The Cupra is definitely the sportier of the two, so you've got your drive modes, and you've got your comfort, sport, and then you've got Cupra mode, which is kind of your sportiest mode, and you can even access that by hitting the Cupra button on the steering wheel here, and that definitely sort of tautens everything up. The steering weight's up, gearbox responds much more quickly, you can use your paddles here if you want to. So this is front wheel drive. At the top of the Cupra Formentor range you can actually get a four-wheel drive version, but not a plug-in hybrid. So front wheel drive, and yet it's got masses of torque, and the result is that it torque steers a lot, this car. So if you go through some quite sort of fast direction changes, if you get on the power quite quickly coming out of a corner, the front wheels will spin up and it gets really quite squirrely, more so than almost any other car I've driven in a long time. I can remember having that much torque steer. It's kind of fun in a funny way, I think, probably for old school car enthusiasts, which I consider myself one of them. There's sort of something scrappy and fun about it. But, you know, in the real world, objectively, it's probably not what most people are going to want, especially in the wet and this kind of thing, if you're going to have some traction issues. There you have it then, two of the most interesting compact SUVs. And it's such a competitive class, this, but these two definitely stand out, as I've said, for just being a bit different in terms of the style and what they're trying to achieve. But for the CarGurus UK verdict, it's the Cupra that takes it. Well, we'd say that this is a really close call, and we would definitely recommend the DS4 E-Tense to anybody who wants something that is really cool to look at and really efficient to live with. We would still say that the Cupra is the ultimate winner here. Don't forget to head to cargurus.co.uk for a whole host of fantastic used cars. Do please like the video, subscribe to the CarGurus UK YouTube channel, and turn on your notifications, because we are doing loads of great videos and we wouldn't want you to miss one.